Leasing public lands to partners means that public lands stays public, and an affordable home, therefore, will stay affordable. I think that's something that every level of government can get behind. Le gouvernement fédéral possède beaucoup de propriétés et de terrains. Par exemple, des propriétés de Poste Canada, des terrains de la Défense nationale et des bureaux fédéraux sous-utilisés. On doit utiliser ces terrains pour mieux servir les Canadiens en aidant à construire plus de logements. Canada Post, for example, has more than 1,700 post offices across the country, many of them in central locations in their communities. We could build homes or apartments on top of these offices that meets the needs of communities while maintaining the services Canadians expect. On national defense properties that are not required for defense operations, we can build affordable housing and prioritize the needs of members of the Canadian Armed Forces and their families. Work is already underway with the Department of National Defense to unlock 14 surplus properties for homes. Now, it's not how previous governments used to do things, but it's not rocket science either. Over the past years, our government has unlocked over 10,000 homes on public land. Ce ne sera pas facile de régler la crise du logement, mais avec des solutions audacieuses et responsables, on va y arriver tous ensemble. And I've spent the last few weeks talking with Canadians. The couple who's expecting their second child and needs an extra room. The workers who deal with long commutes every day to go into work. The students who can't afford to pay for a rent that just keeps increasing. Canadians need homes they can afford. This is one of the most urgent issues that people are facing. And we made a promise to Canadians that we were going to solve this housing crisis, and using public lands to build more homes is a big part of our plan. Mais on va aussi aider les locataires à améliorer leur code de crédit. On travaille avec les municipalités pour éliminer la paperasse et accélérer la construction de logements. On contribue à bâtir plus d'appartements, de coopératives et de logements supervisés à travers le pays. We're working hard every day to make housing more affordable so that every generation has a fair chance to succeed. Thank you all. Merci. And the person who's working hardest every single day on housing is our Minister of Housing, so I'm now happy to pass it over to you, Sean.
Everyone for being here. To my colleagues, Anita and Pam in particular, thanks for hosting us here in Oakville. Prime Minister, good to be with you. Karina, the first time I've seen you in person since the new edition, congratulations. And to everyone from the region, thank you so much for hosting us today. We have to solve the housing crisis, and if we're going to do that, we need to build more homes and build them by the millions. One of the reasons that it's become difficult to build homes at pace over the last number of years is home building has become very expensive. The cost of land, labor, materials, supplies, and interest have all gone up over the last few years, which has made it very difficult to build homes at prices that people can actually afford. One of the things that the federal government could do to reduce the cost of home building is to take land out of the equation to a large degree. And that's where the initiatives around public lands is going to come into play. If you actually contribute public land and make it available for home building, you can reduce the cost of home building immediately by removing the input cost of construction. This allows a reduced cost of construction, but importantly, it also allows you to build homes at prices that more people can afford. Now, there's a number of different ideas floating around Ottawa these days about how we should use federal lands to build more homes. And I gotta say, the pitch that we're seeing from the Conservatives is extremely short-sighted. They're talking about a fire sale to get rid of 6,000 properties to the highest bidder, which isn't going to reduce those input costs of construction, which isn't going to allow them to actually build homes at prices that people can actually afford. What we've come up with is a plan that's going to make a meaningful difference. It does a couple of key things. First, we're establishing a land bank through the acquisition fund that the Prime Minister described a moment ago. But we're also going to be unveiling in the months ahead a new digital mapping tool that will identify all of the federal parcels of land in this country with a scale that grades them according to appropriateness for home building, with details around proximity to job opportunities, access to infrastructure, proximity to transit, and other features that make them desirable to build more homes. We're also going to be pursuing a new strategy of leasing, as the Prime Minister mentioned moments ago. This is very exciting because it allows us not only to put the lands in the hands of builders who are going to build more homes, it allows us a greater degree of control over what kinds of homes are going to be built. It's going to allow us to build more affordable housing. It's going to allow us to ensure that the homes that are being constructed are offered at prices that ordinary Canadians can actually afford. And what's exciting to me is this is the kind of projects that people are going to touch and feel. They can see these buildings in their communities in some instances already. Think about communities across Canada. If your community has a post office, an armory, an office building, or a piece of vacant land that a different level of government owns, we're going to be able to build homes on those particular properties. If you ask people in any community in this country whether they have properties like that in their community, almost everybody's going to say yes. This is an opportunity to help build homes not just in our biggest cities, but in every part of the country. What's exciting as we move forward is we're going to be able to unlock hundreds of thousands of new homes on these properties by making them available for home builders, entering into long-term leases for as little as $1 where appropriate to ensure that we're actually going to get homes built at prices that people can afford. This is a sea change in the way that we're building building homes on federal lands, and we're going to invite other levels of government to join us in this effort as well. Of all the conversations I've had over the course of the past 8 or 9 months that I've been in this particular position, the thing that I've come to believe most is that we can solve the housing crisis. The housing plan and the budget that we put on the table demonstrates the leadership of the federal government to get us there, and now we want other levels of government to join us in this initiative. I want to thank everybody for the opportunity. Very excited to get building in the months ahead. Take care.
We will now start with the question and answer period. First question goes to David Lee from the Oakville Leader.
Hello, Prime Minister. Just wondering if you could talk a little bit about how this plan will specifically impact Halton. I'm not sure if you have any idea how much federal land would be unlocked here or how many houses could be built on this federal land.
We have federal land right across the country, but we also know there's public land owned by municipalities and sometimes the province that is not being utilized for development because of charges or costs or just an inability within the local budget to actually get that rolling. So what we're proposing is not just moving forward on long-term leases of federal public land to developers to build that affordable housing that will be there for generations to come, but also to work with municipalities to say, if you want, we will take this unused land off of your hands, we'll pay you well for it, and with the money that we pay you for, you're going to be able to develop affordable homes on that property. And public lands should stay public. The idea that we'll put long-term leases to make sure that we're remaining accountable to Canadians to keep affordable homes on that for the next 99 years, for example, is really, really important, because public lands should stay public and should remain in the public interest in serving the most vulnerable members of the public. And that's a direct contrast, not just with what the Conservative government previously did when they sold off federal properties in a fire sale to try and balance the books at all costs just in time for an election, but it's also, as Sean mentioned, Pierre Poilievre's plan for housing right now. Sell off public lands to the highest bidders. Well, if you're selling off public lands to the highest builders to build homes, what kind of homes do you think that developer is going to build if they're paying top dollar for federal lands? And once the federal government sells off a piece of property, it's gone forever. The public no longer owns it for a one-time boost to a budget. That's not the kind of vision that solves this housing crisis. So right here in Halton, we're going to be rolling up our sleeves with all the different municipal leaders to look carefully at land that's been underutilized, that's remained vacant, that has opportunities to build good homes on it, and the federal government is going to step up with that partner to keep that land public for the long term, but get building homes people can afford on it right now. That's our plan for right here in Halton, right across the GTA, and indeed right across the country.
Follow up? Follow up. Okay. Next reporter.
Hi, Michelle Song with CBC News. Your opponent was photographed posing with anti-carbon tax protesters flying F. Trudeau flags. In the video, Pierre Poilievre is heard saying that you are a liar and everything you say is, quote, bullshit. Can we get your response, please?
Every politician has to make choices about what kind of leader they want to be. Are they a kind of leader that is going to exacerbate divisions, fear, and polarization in our country, make personal attacks, and welcome the support of conspiracy theorists and extremists. Because that's exactly what Pierre Poilievre continues to do, not just when you see him engaging with members of Diagolon, but also when he refuses to condemn and reject the endorsement of Alex Jones. Alex Jones is a proven liar and conspiracy theorist who has to pay hundreds of millions of dollars because he lied about the Sandy Hook killing that killed 20 little kids. This is the kind of man who's saying Pierre Poilievre has the right ideas to bring the country towards the right, towards conspiracy theories, towards extremism, towards polarization, towards the kind of lies that Alex Jones is peddling still. So the fact that Pierre Poilievre hasn't stood up to condemn that endorsement, the fact that he continues to encourage the kind of divisive approaches to Canada that I don't think Canadians want to see, really shows that he will do anything to win, anything to torque up negativity and fear. And it only emphasizes that he has nothing to say to actually solve the problems that he's busy amplifying.
En français?
Je pense qu'une des choses qu'on voit, c'est que M. Poilievre a choisi d'être un politicien qui cherche la division, la peur et à encourager des extrémistes de droite, que ce soit Diagolon ou que ce soit en acceptant l'endossement de Alex Jones, un théoriste du complot et un menteur prouvé des États-Unis, qui a nié la réalité du meurtre, de la tuerie à Sandy Hook. La réalité, c'est que tout politicien doit choisir le genre de leader qu'ils vont être. Et M. Poilievre a choisi d'être négatif, d'être divisif, d'être toxique et surtout de ne pas offrir des solutions concrètes pour les anxiétés auxquelles les Canadiens font face.
Follow-up.
There are Canadians that agree with Mr. Poilievre and are angry at you. What do you say to the Canadians who agree with him and not you?
We're a democracy where people get to express themselves and vote however they choose when the federal election comes around. And that's an important piece of it. And I know people are going to vote for all sorts of different parties. I think what Canadians will also do, though, is take a careful look not just at who is reflecting back some of the very real frustrations people are facing, but who's able to solve it. Who's actually putting forward concrete plans to solve the challenges we're facing? Let's just take this announcement we're making today. We're announcing that the federal government is going to get in the business of long-term leases for properties to build on public lands to build affordable housing. That contrasts with Pierre Poilievre's plan for public lands, which is to sell them off to the highest bidder so developers can make money off of them and build homes. That won't create a single affordable home. That brings in money to balance the budget at all costs, but it leaves Canadians out in the cold and does not solve the housing crisis. At least he's consistent. When he was housing minister, selling off public lands was what the previous Harper government did as their housing strategy and is part of why we're facing so many challenges on housing today. We are solving these problems, and when time comes for the election, I know Canadians are going to be very, very thoughtful about what kind of country we want to live in. What kind of choice are we making about the future we're building? Are we solving the challenges we're facing, or are we just exacerbating and amplifying them? I trust Canadians to be reasonable.
En français.
Monsieur Poilievre est en train de mettre de l'avant une vision de ce pays qui met l'emphase sur les divisions et sur une amplification des anxiétés et des peurs et de la colère que beaucoup de gens sont en train de sentir. Le problème, c'est que d'amplifier la colère, ça ne résout aucune solution, aucun problème, ça ne propose aucune solution. Prenons par exemple le contraste de l'annonce qu'on est en train de faire aujourd'hui. M. Poilièvre propose de vendre des terrains publics à des développeurs à de très bons prix, à de prix très élevés, pour pouvoir équilibrer le budget. Mais ça va mener à des développeurs qui vont bâtir des projets de luxe sur des terrains publics. Notre proposition, c'est de garder le contrôle de ces terrains en permettant des développeurs de bâtir pour le long terme des logements abordables. C'est une façon d'assurer l'abordabilité pour des années à venir. Et le contraste est très clair et le choix sera très clair pour les Canadiens sur quel genre de pays dans lequel nous voulons vivre dans les années à venir, pour les générations à venir. Est-ce qu'on amplifie la colère ou est-ce qu'on va résoudre les problèmes? C'est le choix des Canadiens et je suis très confiant que les Canadiens vont rester raisonnables et responsables dans leur choix.
Next question.
Hello, Mr. Prime Minister. Ben Brown, Oakville News. What would you say directly to Canadians who think your measures aren't strong enough to tackle the housing affordability crisis?
I agree that we're going to continue to do more and more, and that's why the federal government alone cannot solve everything. That's why I'm so glad to be here with so many strong municipal leaders. That's why so many of our proposals are expecting provinces to step up with similar levels of ambition. No one order of government can solve the housing crisis on its own, but we are putting forward the most comprehensive and ambitious housing plan Canada has ever seen. But you're right, there needs to be more. Municipalities need to step up with ambition around densification, particularly around campuses and public transit stops. Provinces need to step up on partnering to build more wastewater and infrastructure that's going to enable housing. They need to be able to move forward on zoning that's going to make a difference right across their province. These are the things we are encouraging the provinces to do. We need to make sure we're all doing our part. The federal government is putting forward one of the most ambitious proposals that has ever been seen. And we're there to work with anyone else, any other order of government that wants to be equally ambitious. And quite frankly, we're seeing it right across the country.
Follow-up question. What would you say to Canadians who think the measures in Budget 2024 are going too far and we're building too many homes too quick without thinking about the long-term effects?
I think the long-term effects on our economy of young people who can't build their dreams, can't start a family, can't live in the communities in which they work, will be devastating for this economy. The current situation is not just unfair for young families and young people who don't have the opportunities that their parents and grandparents had when you work hard to build a future for yourself, but being there to partner with them and ensure that they can afford homes, that we can restore the idea of fairness for every generation, to ask the wealthiest to pay a little bit more, to bring down the costs of rentals across the GTA, across the country. These are the things that get resolved when we build homes. These are the things that get resolved when we encourage the construction of middle-income apartment buildings. These are the things that happen when we unlock federal land through long-term leases that are going to keep affordable homes on it. This is an ambitious plan that meets the moment. And anyone who says we don't need to put everything on the table right now is not listening to young people and is not understanding how to build the kind of long-term success that every Canadian deserves.
Next question.
Hey, good morning, Prime Minister Mark with the Canadian Press. Does Canada support the measures in the US passed by Congress regarding potential sale or ban of TikTok? And would that mitigate the government concerns about the app?
I'm not going to comment on what other governments are doing. What I will say is Canada will continue to look very closely at how we can make sure we're keeping Canadians safe while making sure we're taking advantage of great technologies that spur innovation and opportunity for people right across the country. We know that the security, the privacy, and the data protection of Canadians needs to be a first priority for us. We've already taken significant measures on that, and we will continue to do that, but we will act in ways that are right for Canadians.
Okay, on a different topic, polls suggest that the federal government budget isn't landing with younger would-be voters you are targeting. How are you going to win back those people who post-pandemic have decided they're no longer interested in big government playing a role in their lives?
This budget is about solving problems. This is about making sure that an economy that no longer works as well as it should, as well as it did for our parents' and grandparents' generations, actually works for young people. This is about delivering more affordable homes across the country. It's about delivering childcare spaces so young families can have better options. It's about delivering more public transit and infrastructure investments that are going to be making a difference in people's lives. This is about building a strong economy for the future. This isn't about politics. This is about making sure that the system, the economy, and the government of Canada can meet the moment the Canadians need it to. And in that question, yes, there is a choice that Canadians are going to be facing in a year and a half about what kind of country we are. Whether governments should just get out of the way and leave people to fend for themselves, which is what Pierre Poilievre is proposing with his austerity cuts and advantages for the rich with his trickle-down approach. That's one of the choices, where governments aren't there to make sure that there are opportunities for everyone, aren't there to make sure there's fairness for every generation, versus what we're putting on the table and what we're actually doing. Delivering more homes young people can see themselves in. Allowing rent, for example, to go towards your credits, to count towards your credit score so you can qualify for a mortgage sooner. These are the kinds of things that we're doing to solve the challenges Canadians are facing. I am confident that as Canadians see these measures happening, they will start being more optimistic about their future the way we need them to be, to grow a strong economy, to build a stronger future. That's our focus. Fairness for every generation, starting right now. That's where we're going to continue to put all our emphasis.
Next question.
Good morning, I'm Jessica Keating from Halton News. You mentioned that the federal land that will be unlocked for homes will remain public land. What would this mean for the home buyers, as it sounds like they won't own the land, and I'm wondering if this will affect the resale value or if these homes won't be owned in the traditional sense?
Many of these public lands will be unlocked for long-term co-op homes, long-term affordable rentals, and issues like that, where the long-term ownership is not an issue. 100-year leases or 99-year leases are the kinds of things that don't make sense if you're talking about a single-family property. But as soon as you're talking about row homes or cooperatives, make a lot more sense. And those are the kinds of things that ensure that not just right now or for the next 5 years, but for the next generation, the federal government retains a level of control and accountability over what actually gets built on these so they don't get flipped over into luxury condos after a generation. We need homes for the long term, and that's exactly what this plan is all about. But I'll turn to Sean to talk a little more about the long-term lease impact.
Thank you, and I think it's an important question, but one of the things you have to understand when you're looking at different housing markets is that every kind of housing is connected to one another in a given market. So when we're able to build more affordable housing or more cooperative housing under a long-term lease on federal lands, that's going to take a lot of pressure off the market that exists inside a given city with the housing stock that already exists. It's also going to create an opportunity for more people to be saving up for that down payment while they may be renting a place on the properties that are developed as a result. So you can't look at any one part of the housing plan in isolation, because if you only do one part, you're destined to fail. But if we're able to build more affordable housing, in particular on federal lands, by reducing the cost of construction in exchange for commitments that it's going to be made available at affordable prices, you're then going to take a lot of pressure off of the market in adjacent neighborhoods. It's going to allow more people to save up to buy. And keep in mind that we're not just hoping that works out. We've also got policies in place that are designed to help a young person who's seeking to buy. The Prime Minister's mentioned using a person's rental history as credit. We've also got new measures that offer tax-free savings opportunities for people who are struggling to save up with a down payment, and new measures that will allow you to amortize the purchase of a new home from 25 to 30 years that will also reduce the monthly mortgage costs. So every step of the way, we've tried to base this plan not on what's going to work for the people who administer the system, but the people who rely on it, the people who are saving up for a down payment, the people who can't make a rent or mortgage payment. So the move towards building more affordable housing on public land is going to have an enormously positive spillover effect into the market more broadly. It's going to provide very direct support to the people who will live at more affordable prices on the new homes that are built on those specific parcels. Thank you.
Follow-up?
Yes, I was wondering about the rent payments that are going to count towards the credit score. Would this apply in cases where you're renting from a private, like they own the house and you're renting directly from that landlord?
Yes, we are trying to work with banks and institutions. Quite frankly, banks want this. Banks want to have more potential customers to grant mortgages to. We know that more and more landlords, even private landlords, are going to more digital systems that will leave for an accountability. Your credit score hasn't counted rent, in part because rent wasn't as high as it is now and not as significant event for expense as it is becoming now, but also because rent is not credit. Rent is a payment you're making every month that shows that you are reliable and responsible in your ability to pay $2,000 rent. But if the bank then can't see that you've paid your $2,000 rent every month on time like clockwork for years, they should know, wow, you're going to be able to afford a $2,000 mortgage or a $2,500 mortgage as you move forward. You're a reliable consumer. These are the things that are very exciting. But again, Sean has more details on this.
Yeah. Certainly, so this particular policy is going to benefit from two changes that we made that will make it easier for a person to use their rental history to build credit if they choose. The first is amending the Canadian Mortgage Charter, which is going to provide an opportunity for people to know that they should have an expectation when they go to their financial institution. If they wish to have their rental history count towards building credit, that's something that they can do. But the big opportunity here is through open banking, consumer-directed finance. The changes that we're making that's going to empower people to use their own banking information in a way that they see fit is going to allow them to reach out to a service. And some of these services exist today, but struggle because the infrastructure is not in place, the digital infrastructure is not in place to allow them to scale. There's a Canadian company called Borrowell that offers this service, but runs into challenges because it's not easy for people to say, I want to report my rental history. This can happen automatically as we move forward with the consumer-directed financing program that was actually included in the federal budget recently, where automatically, because they have a digital account with their financial institution, we'll be able to have that payment that comes out every month at the same time be reflected and automatically build up their credit. So Canadian companies already have relationships with credit bureaus for this purpose, and we're going to make that easier by moving forward with a consumer-directed finance regime. At the same time, we amend the Canadian Mortgage Charter. Thank you.
Last question.
Hi, CTV News. Question, yesterday you said people in Saskatchewan would get the full carbon rebate back despite Premier Moe saying he won't collect it on home heating. Why have you now changed your position, and what does this mean for other provinces who also refuse to collect?
First of all, there's been no change in position. We believe that delivering money to Canadians through the Canada Carbon Rebate is a good thing for the fight against climate change and a good thing to help with affordability. In fact, in federal jurisdictions where the backstop is applied, that is most provinces, 8 out of 10 families, particularly middle class and low income families, get more money off of the CCR check that just landed last Monday on April 15th than they pay out on the price on pollution. And that was core to our designing of a way to fight climate change in a way that supports affordability for Canadians. And that's what it's doing right across the country, putting more money back in people's pockets and fighting climate change at the same time. Now, Premier Moe has decided that he doesn't want to pay the money to CRA that he is owing. We're not going to penalize the people of Saskatchewan or in any jurisdiction for that, because we have faith in CRA, which is an independent agency, to collect the money that is owed. I don't know about you, but having an argument with CRA about not wanting to pay your taxes is not a position I want anyone to be in. Good luck with that, Premier Mo. CRA is an independent organization that is very, very good at getting money it is owed from Canadians, from businesses, and now from provinces if it has to. We don't have to do anything as a federal government. The CRA is independent and will go through its proper judicial legal processes, and I have no doubt it will get there eventually. In the meantime, Premier Mo's ideological opposition to fighting climate change and putting more money in the pockets of Saskatchewan families shouldn't punish those Saskatchewan families, so we will continue to step up with $1,800 this year for a family of 4 in Saskatchewan with the Canada Carbon Rebate, which again is more than the average family pays on the extra price on pollution that continues to apply. The other issue is that in places like Saskatchewan, there's a rural top-up that is right now at 10%, but is on its way to 20%. The reason it's not already at 20%, wasn't at 20% on Monday for rural regions across the country, is because Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives are continuing to stall and block the legislation that would double that rural top-up. So their opposition to action against climate change is actually harming the very rural communities that often vote for them, and that's something that we also don't think is right. But it's a good example of where the Conservative ideology is harming families that actually need support from the government right now with the cost of everything, even as we continue to step up in the fight against climate change.
This concludes today's press conference. Thank you, everyone.
Yes,
Thank you.